For a fruity twist on a classic recipe, you should try this cocktail right here. Let me show you how to make a Port Manhattan. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and like I said, today I'm making a nice fruity little twist on a classic. I'm making a Port Manhattan, or I've seen this called online a portmanteau, or I think a better name would be a Chelsea Pier, because I've seen a lot of like Manhattan riffs and they're named after different kind of parts of New York, like the Red Hook, different places in New York, and the kind of traditional pier on Manhattan I think was Chelsea Pier. So if you're going to make a Port Manhattan or a Manhattan Port, I think the Chelsea Pier would be a good name, but I've seen people call it a portmanteau. So the thumbnail of this video probably said something like Port Manhattan or portmanteau, but I think the better name is the Chelsea Pier. And I got the idea for this video when I reviewed this whiskey right here. This is the Drumshanbo single pot still Irish whiskey that was aged entirely in port cask. Now it's a single pot still whiskey, so it has this really nice spicy kind of weight to it, but it also spent its entire 7-year age statement in port cask, in tawny port cask. So it has this really nice balance of like spicy pot still notes with that rich fruity note you get in a port. So I wanted to kind of highlight that note. I wanted to highlight the fruity note, and I looked up whiskey cocktails with port and I saw people were talking about the Port Manhattan, so I said, look, I'll give that one a go because it actually might sound pretty tasty. So I'm going to try it out here on the channel. For my port, I'm using a ruby port. I'm not using a tawny port because those are aged a little bit longer, because this here has really lovely bright fruity red berry notes, and I wanted to have a kind of a richer, brighter fruity note rather than like the tawny port, which gives you much kind of darker caramelized, darker fruit notes, because I want this to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more elevated, because that spiciness in the single pot still whiskey does give you a nice bit of like weight behind it. So I kind of wanted the notes to work with each other rather than just going all down into the dark, deeper notes. And I will be having a little bit of bitters in here. For me, orange bitters, again, just to brighten up that note, give it a bit more freshness, a bit more lightness, rather than using Angostura bitters and orange bitters where I might normally use those. And I think that's enough time talking about the cocktail. Let's get to making it. It is going to be like a classic Manhattan, stirred, so we're going to get our mixing glass and we're going to pop a nice rock of ice into there before we measure out our ingredients. Sticking close to that classic Manhattan formula, I'm going to go in with 2 ounces or 60 ml of my lovely Irish single pot still whiskey. You can use whatever whiskey you want. This here, like I said, it does have a nice bit of kind of spiciness to it. It comes in at 43% alcohol by volume, so if you wanted to keep the spiciness but you can't get this whiskey, maybe like an American rye or another single pot still whiskey could give you the same kind of note. So in there, 60 ml and then 30 ml of my ruby port, which like I said has these lovely bright fresh berry notes, and it's going to work, I think, really well in this cocktail. So pop that in there, and then I'm going to go in with not 1, not 2, but 3 dashes, 1, 2, 3 of my orange bitters. Again, like I said, to really just give this a bit of extra brightness and a bit of extra freshness, because I do want that to come through into the final cocktail. Now I'm going to stir this down for about 30-35 seconds until the outside of my mixing glass is nice and cold. Okay, I can feel that this is nicely chilled and it does taste pretty nice, so I'm going to get ready to strain it out into a nice little Nick and Nora glass. So I'm going to get my strainer up top just to catch that big rock of ice and pour it out just like that. For a garnish on this, I'm going to keep it, again, kind of simple, kind of classic. I'm going to go in with a Luxardo Maraschino Cherry. That's, again, it just has this lovely like fresh, not fresh actually, not fresh at all, but it has this like syrupy sweet cherry note to it, and a little bit of that extra, like the marasca syrup there, will give it a bit of extra sweetness and a bit of extra kind of just balance to the cocktail, because we've got a lot of spicy notes, we've got a lot of fruity notes, and so a little bit of extra sugar there I think should help round it out. And that right there is how I make a Port Manhattan. Now real quick, before I taste this cocktail, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews like the review of that single pot still whiskey from Drumshanbo every Wednesday, and I put out cocktail recipes featuring whiskey like this every Friday. And if you want, you can leave me a note in the comments below and let me know if there's any cocktails I should try out in future, because I'm always on the hunt for new recipes. But now let's try this one right here. Cheers. Okay, it actually works really well. I was a little bit kind of hesitant because I saw people online, they just changed out like the whiskey and vermouth ratio to whiskey and port, and I was a little hesitant. I was like, maybe it's not going to be super palatable. Like the ruby port is lovely, but it's very, very fruity, and it's very kind of, I was worried it might dominate a bit. That's why I went for like the lighter, fresher ruby port as opposed to a tawny port. But the whiskey actually comes through nicely. You actually do get a nice bit of like whiskey flavor. And then the orange bitters, I think the orange bitters work really well. If there were Angostura in here, it might go a bit too botanical. It might kind of not highlight the port, because again, what you want to do here is you want to focus on the port. You want to highlight that port character to the whiskey, and I think, yeah, it comes through really well. It's very simple. It's just a Manhattan swapped out the vermouth with port, but I think it's actually pretty nice. It's something that I didn't think I'd expect. Like the little cherry, I'm not sure if you can see it, it's like it's hidden in there, so there's probably gonna be a little bit of surprise at the end of the drink. Like that sugary syrup is gonna make the last couple of sips a little bit sweeter, a little bit more maybe appetizing, but it is actually a very nice little drink. So if you haven't tried it, I would recommend you try this one out, and I'll see you next time. Sláinte.